Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday.
We got a lot going on, including we're following some breaking news. The Iranians have shot down a U.S. drone over the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to talk about what that means, and we've got a great guest, actually, to talk about those developments. Representative Matt Gaetz, a Florida Republican, who's been very vocal in opposition of military engagements in Iran and other places, and also very much opposed to that authorization of the use of military force that presidents on both sides have used to take military action around the world. So we're going to talk to him.
And we're going to look a little bit into Joe Biden and the new developments on on some segregationist comments that he made. All that coming up today on Rising. Good morning, everybody. Some troubling new developments. What's on your radar, Krystal?
Indeed. What's on my radar is completely ready for war. Those were the words of the commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard after they shot down one of our drones over the Strait of Hormuz. This provocation, of course, undoubtedly going to add to the case for military action that hawks like Tom Cotton, John Bolton, and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo have been making. On that front, Pompeo yesterday claimed to Congress that Iran has ties to al-Qaeda. Now, given that Iran is hardline Shia and al-Qaeda is, of course, hardline Sunni, two sectarian groups that don't exactly have a track record of being best buddies, there is reason for deep skepticism of that claim. There's another reason, though, for deep skepticism here, and that's that an Iranian association with al-Qaeda would very conveniently make it much easier for the administration to go to war with Iran under that existing 2001 AUMF that, of course, we've been talking about. So that authorization of the use of military force, it was passed in the wake of the 9/11 attacks, gave the president very broad authority to use, quote, necessary and appropriate force against those whom he determined planned, authorized, committed, or aided the September 11th attacks, or who harbored said persons or groups. So again, significant that the administration is making the dubious case that Iran and al-Qaeda are connected. Now, Dems yesterday took some action to try to roll back that AUMF. They voted to repeal it, of course, although there is a lot of bipartisan support for repealing or modifying that AUMF. Mitch McConnell is not part of that bipartisan support, so do not expect it to go anywhere in the Senate. Still, kudos to the Dems for trying to do something here. So the question is, what happens next? The president sent some mixed messages about his own intentions with regard to Iran. He did say, we are ready to go to war over nuclear weapons. But on the other hand, Daily Beast is reporting that he is telling the hawks and his admin to cool down their hot rhetoric. So with this latest development, again, a drone being shot down by Iran over the Strait of Hormuz, what are the warmongers going to do and what are they going to say now, Saagar?
Well, al-Qaeda ties to Iran is Saddam Hussein WMD levels of insanity. It's the exact same things that the same people who drove us to war in Iraq were pushing in 2002. I literally could not believe my eyes when I saw the headline from the New York Times, because it's the exact same thing that Paul Wolfowitz and many other advocates of a strike on Iran, Condoleezza Rice, smoking gun, and the mushroom cloud, all that crap, were saying in 2002. It is unhinged insanity. And by the way, we should think about how flimsy the evidence is on al-Qaeda ties to Iran. It's like Hamza bin Laden, who's the son of bin Laden, resided there at some point. As far as I know, publicly, that's what it is.
The case is.
I mean, have they helped the Taliban?
It's like one person lived in the country.
Have they helped the Taliban, and are they our enemies? And have they probably aided and abetted al-Qaeda at some point? Yes. Does that mean that they're covered under the 2001 AUMF to take America to war with a regional power in the Middle East? No.
Right.
That's insane.
And that's what's so transparent here, right? Is that AUMF is specifically aimed at Taliban, al-Qaeda, the people who hurt us on 9/11.
Yes.
So if you can make that link, then it's very hard to argue that you don't have the authority under that 2001 AUMF. So it's just completely transparent what they're trying to do here.
Congress needs to do its job. If the administration wants to pull this, they need to exercise their powers. This country is, it's the catastrophic results of Iraq and Afghanistan. We're still paying for that right now.
And Iran would be worse than Iraq. A much larger military, just much more sophisticated. It would be a much more, even more dangerous and horrible situation.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Everybody
runaway warmongering.
What are you looking at?
Well, a hard turn from something as important as this. But Uncle Joe has struck again. The gaffe machine has delivered on his gaffes. Joe Biden is refusing to apologize for recalling the civil days of working with segregationists and racists in the United States Senate. Let's take a listen to his lack of apology and then the response from Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, who had called on him to apologize originally.
There's not a racist bone in my body. I've been involved in civil rights my whole career. Period. Period. Period.
For his posture to be to me, I've done nothing wrong, you should apologize, I'm not a racist, is so insulting and so missing the larger point that he should not have to have explained to him.
That is such a bizarre double down from the former vice president, who is saying, look at my record, look at what I did on all of this, and in exchange, excuse my comments for recalling the civil age of working with segregationists in Congress. This is all just reminiscence about a bygone era that literally nobody wants to go back to. He has been talking about this and telling this story for years and years and years as an example of the civility that so many people wanted to reject in the 2016 election. It's a mystery how Democratic voters, especially younger Democratic voters, will be able to stomach tales of working with a guy like James Eastland, the former senator of Mississippi, who used horrific language about African Americans at the height of the civil rights era. We know exactly where those people's hearts stood. They were courteous as long as they blocked a civil rights bill for 2 decades. They stopped African American soldiers returning from World War II from receiving equal rights in the southern states. Remember this. It is a sleeping press, though, that I also want to address here. This man spent 8 years a heartbeat away from the presidency under an African-American president. And now we're reviewing his past association with segregationists in the United States Senate, with Anita Hill, his behavior with women. All of a sudden, things are surfacing from the 1970s about Joe Biden's support or lack of support for school busing, his opposition for school busing in the 1970s. We should look upon these people's records. But why did it take so long for a decades-long politician to face real scrutiny from the press? It's 2019. It would have been great, Krystal, to read some of these headlines in 2007.
Yeah, that's fair. I hate this line that he says, and the president also says, about there's not a racist bone in my body. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is what you've done, right? He wants us to look at his record, really? Because as you point out, it's not just busing, right? It's also the crime bill that led to vast increase in mass incarceration that he still has not been able to bring himself to apologize for.
And the Anita Hill hearings.
And the way he handled the hearings.
Now look, I actually fall on the other side of these things. But if I'm a Democratic voter, I would look at this and say, this man refuses, to apologize, atone, and what that is he's so rooted in that old school backroom deals ideology that why would you put this man in the Oval Office in 2020?
It is the height of privilege to believe that the biggest problem that this country faces is that senators don't eat dinner together anymore. I mean, that's just, and that I think is really the core of his belief, which is why he won't apologize here. As you point out, this is not the first time he's told this story. No. This is like a go-to riff of Joe Biden, and he really, at his core, believes that if we could just get back to this, like, senators being buddies and slapping each other on the back, then we'd all be fine. But the reality is, A, we're not going back to those times. B, people don't want to.
And Biden was in a room with billionaires in a New York fundraiser a few days ago, and he says, don't worry, nobody's standard of living here is going to change. What?
Yeah.
What? Excuse me? I mean, are my ears, like, are they broken?
Yeah.
This is a Democrat running for office assuring Wall Street billionaires that everything is going to be okay. Is that the type of person that you want in the Oval Office, who is on the side of big capital? By the way, this is the vice president during the administration of the people who crashed our economy into the ground.
And there was no accountability.
Zero. They're all still making. Look at Jamie Dimon. He's living his best life in 2020.
We like to talk about the rule of law. We like to talk about accountability. I think for most Americans, when they saw the fact that we ponied up all the cash that was needed to bail out Wall Street, which we probably needed to do, but that there was absolutely zero consequence for the people who brought down our whole economy, destroyed almost the world economy, zero consequences. Where was the rule of law?
No, they rotted this nation from the inside out, and now we're seeing the effects of that rot. And somehow we want to put one of the people most responsible for that back into the Oval Office.
Good times. Next up on Rising, former White House Communications Director Hope Hicks testified before Congress. Meanwhile, tensions with Iran, as we were just discussing, continue to escalate as the House repeals a law giving the president authority to use military force.
But Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz says the president needs to be focused on securing the border. He addresses all of this when Rising continues.